Эта линия достаточно, я сказал бы,
Russia has dramatically escalated its diplomatic offensive against the West. Speaking at SPF, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed efforts to end the Ukraine war are trapped in a vicious circle and suggested that despite back-channel contacts, the much-talked-about peace push has produced virtually nothing.
Not only the dialogue itself is important, although it is, but it is also important to implement what was agreed upon. I want to reiterate, we reached a very clear understanding in Alaska based on a specific proposal from the US. And if the United States had truly promoted its initiative, I think we would have been at the negotiating table long ago, and military actions would have been stopped.
Then came the bombshell. Lavrov accused Washington of abandoning its own path to peace. According to the Russian foreign minister, Moscow accepted compromises proposed during talks in Anchorage, only for the United States to later change course. His claim was stark. If Washington had genuinely backed its own initiative, Russia and Ukraine could already be at the negotiating table and the fighting might have stopped.
We are ready, as President Putin has repeatedly said. We are always ready for negotiations, but we do not see readiness on the other side, and most importantly, we do not see negotiable partners. But the fact that the Ukrainians, the regime that came to power after the coup in February 2014, is absolutely non-negotiable, I think, does not even need to be proven to anyone. Covers, finances, arms.
Lavrov also dismissed Kyiv as an unreliable negotiating partner, insisting Russia remains open to talks while accusing Ukraine's leadership of refusing meaningful dialogue. He argued that Western governments continue to arm, fund, and politically shield Kyiv while simultaneously calling for negotiations, a contradiction, Moscow says, exposes the real intentions behind Western policy. But Lavrov reserved his fiercest attack for Europe. He accused European leaders of keeping President Volodymyr Zelensky in power because he serves Western strategic interests against Russia. Going further, he claimed Europe would never support a settlement that removes Zelensky's government and wants to dictate terms to Moscow rather than mediate peace.
Europeans defend Zelensky exclusively because he is fighting against the Russian Federation for Europeans in general for Western interests, for the idea of the West to suppress Russia as a competitor. At the same time, I don't want to quote, but she still holds the post of head of the EU's foreign policy structure, Kaja Kallas, when she declares, "We demand that Russia sit at the negotiating table, but first let it reduce its army and reduce its weapons, set some kind of ceiling." And then she openly declares, as many other European representatives have said, that Europe will not be a mediator at the negotiating table. So what will Europe be then? Dictating conditions, accepting an act of capitulation in Russia. Europe has deceived both Russia and the rest of the world repeatedly. The West is non-negotiable.
Targeting NATO and Brussels directly, Lavrov pointed to Mark Rutte's pledge that Ukraine belongs in NATO as proof that the West is still pursuing confrontation, not compromise.
Rutte went to Kiev, where he directly said that Ukraine would be in NATO. He didn't care that the United States, represented by President Trump, considers this unacceptable, and Rutte simply stated, hugging Zelensky, that Ukraine would be in NATO. and regarding the recognition of the realities on the ground that have developed as a result of the struggle against the Kiev regime by the population of these territories of southeastern Ukraine, it was publicly stated by Zelensky, and Europe supports him, that there will be no recognition. We will stop the war, accumulate forces, and then we will reclaim these lands further, so that the Nazi regime remains on these lands, or rather the Nazi regime is restored. And the fact that Europe, besides dragging Ukraine into NATO, finds it easier to accept it into NATO than to take the fatal step and include Ukraine in the European Union.
Это все несерьезно.
The message from Moscow was unmistakable. The Kremlin is no longer blaming Kyiv alone. It is accusing Washington and Europe of blocking peace, while publicly claiming to support it.